welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist, but let's be honest, this was not an episode that required any particular insight. We had no meaningful conflict. We had no new information. We basically just retreaded a whole bunch of, consistent, constant tropes in this show. And I, for one, was bored. But why don't you tell everybody what we're doing here?
Okay. I mean, I'm with you. And I also, that's not entirely accurate what you had said, but fine.
Well, I'm interested to hear what excitement you found from this episode.
Well, that wasn't the part you were wrong about, but what we are here today talking about is Joan's season of the Golden Bachelorette, the inaugural Golden Bachelorette season. And we are on episode 6, Hometowns Week. So we meet 4 families. We learn a little bit more about these men, and we get one elimination that brings us closer to the final rose.
And wait to the end of the episode, and you'll get a little bit of a Bachelor Nation / Dancing with the Stars crossover commentary.
And to be honest, I'm more excited to talk about that this week. So before we get too carried away, please make sure to hit that like button at the bottom of this video and also subscribe. We love having new subscribers join us every week. If you are new here, that little action of that subscribe button actually goes a really long way, and we really appreciate when you do.
And also hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel. All right. So opening thoughts. What did you like? What did you see? Where was the excitement? Any great insights?
What I will say is I've never been to any of these 3 places. I've never been to Chicago. I've never been to Lake Tahoe. And I've never been to Kansas, and Wichita specifically. So that was interesting to visit cities that I've never seen before. And I thought the water on Lake Tahoe and the river, I think that's going through Chicago is beautiful. So that definitely piqued my interest, but it kind of, started and stopped there. What I will say is, and I texted you while I was watching, I found the celebration of Chock's mom's life pretty emotional. But other than that, I was really watching the clock on this episode.
My big issue this week was that we have absolutely no suspense whatsoever. Chock has already won this. We said it last week. We already know. Joan has flat out told us when we thought maybe potentially there's an opportunity here for some other guy, potentially. Everything she's saying in her face to cameras, everything she's saying to Jesse, and everything that we're seeing in her behavior tells us that Chock has won this and all the suspense is gone. I find it frustrating because at least if she had kept, Jonathan and Keith around, we would have had at least a little bit of suspense. She's not into Guy. She's definitely not into Jordan. We knew that weeks ago when they had their one-on-one dates in the same episode. We said then, why are these two still here? They both should have gone home though that week. And while she really likes Pascal, maybe I think Pascal was actually the highlight of this episode. My mind was actually blown with Pascal. I have an entirely new appreciation and an entirely new perception of Pascal. I thought that was the highlight of the episode, where, I saw just such a different side of him that was not helpless, that was, kind of in his element. You saw him with his family, which was beautiful. And his family's a very attractive family as well. It was just, the whole thing was really, for me, was the highlight of the episode. Everything else was pretty much a snooze fest. I think the conversations she had with Pascal were the only thing that approximated something interesting, not necessarily new, but at least like some interesting commentary. Is he really ready? You could tell that she cares. With Guy and Jordan, it felt like she was going through the motions, and she didn't really care what the answers were.
Right.
You had said, you had texted me and said, does it feel like she's just actively trying to avoid kissing Guy? And my response was, I think she's trying to actively avoid this entire date. Why is he here? Why is she here?
I think that's why it sort of feels so frustrating to me, because and I had said also to you, I don't know why. I guess I'm not used to leading with my most negative thoughts in the way that you do, and leading with my rant. But yeah, when when we were watching the episode, when it got to Chock and like just seeing their relationship, it's sort of like, come on, ABC, like you're wasting our time here. Like what, let's just cut to the chase. And I think like I could understand how viewers are like, well, no, there's this formula, there are these steps that they need to take. We've seen plenty of leads break the mold of that. And it just kind of felt like it was unfair to put Guy and Jordan and their families in this position when both of their relationships were referred to as a slow burn. These were relationships that were not nearly deep enough to have gotten to that stage. And I just felt like we could have still had a great episode with just two hometowns, just Chock and Pascal. And I don't know what we're doing here. And it just kind of it made me feel a little icky that, families were getting involved when there's not any substance there at all. I didn't like it. It really rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah. And in addition to that, we had 4 hometowns in a 90-minute episode. There was no time for actual content. We got, and all these families were massive families. So there was so many people and so many conversations happening. Like you didn't have time to really settle in and hear a conversation and get, too much back and forth. So you didn't even get the meat of any conversations. It just felt like, if you're going to do 90 minutes, which yes, please do 90 minutes, drop a couple, only give us 3 couples here.
Yeah.
So you can give them at least a little bit more time. But if you're going to give us these 4 couples, just give us 2 couples, just give us Pascal and Chock. At least then there'd be some suspense. We would, get a little bit more depth going on. I would have loved to have seen more with Pascal's family. Chock's, family we'll get into in a few minutes, but I thought Chock's family dynamic was different than I was expecting. Both of these people had very different dynamics in their families than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Right. Significantly different than I was expecting.
I'm sorry. Pascal's family could have their own spinoff. Like I thought they were, they were awesome. And again, not surprising, but okay, we're getting ahead of it.
Was Pascal's son trying to like maybe snake in there? Like did anyone else get that feel? Maxim, great name by the way.
I didn't catch that.
No,
I didn't catch that vibe. No.
All right.
No,
maybe it's just my male antenna is up a little bit.
It just might be his like, French genes, like the suave, charming, Frenchness that was coming through.
All right. Because I thought I saw a little Maxim just sort of like
swoop in on his dad's woman.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame him. I don't blame him. But all right. Do we even do good date, bad date in hometowns? I guess we do, right? So we got good date, bad date.
Yes.
Yeah. So all right. So the first date is with Guy out at Lake Tahoe, which is a beautiful location. They go on a boat. They sail around. They make some wishes with some rocks. I didn't really quite get the whole story. Kind of a cute idea. I mean, obviously, everyone knows you love being on a boat. So this I would imagine is going to be a perfect date for you. I like being on the boat, like being on the water. It's private, it's intimate, but you also like it's an activity. It can be fun. You change the scenery up, and it's just all around. I liked it. Is it like an A+ date? No, but like, I would take.
What would make it an A+ date? How would you elevate it to an A+ date?
Peach Bellinis. If you know, you know.
Homemade peach Bellinis.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know,
we have a good friend of ours who went on a first date. They are now married. On the first date, he took her on his boat, which was a similar boat to what they were on. And he made homemade drinks, and the homemade drinks happened to be peach Bellinis, and they happened to be.
I mean, they're
supposedly
perfect.
her favorite drinks.
Perfect. Spokespeople for a show like this. Like it reminds me of what Jordan's brother was sharing about meeting and after a short amount of time getting married. Our friends did that too. They met, maybe a week later they moved in together and got engaged, and now they've been married for 8 years or so, and have 2 kids and are great.
So I think it's a good date. I like it. I think it's kind of reasonable. This is something that you could do. You could rent a boat for a few $100s, for a day. Depending on whether or not you can drive it or not, depends on the state and stuff like that. But like this is a good date. I like it.
Do you think the captain of the boat being one of the people on the date adds or detracts from the date? Like Guy
Very
was
good question. So
driving the boat.
it's funny you asked that question. My question to you was going to be, does the man driving the boat add because it shows skill and depth and competency? Uh, does it take away because if he's got a captain, then he can spend more time focused on you. And also, if he has a captain, it's more of an indication potentially that he might be more of means because he can actually not just afford the boat, but he can afford somebody to drive the boat for him. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, candidly, I think it's kind of hot that when there's a guy that has that skill.
He's just
So
billowing, open shirt, just throttling
well,
up,
no, I mean, but I
cruising
think
through the waves.
what is attractive about it is exactly what you said, like the skillfulness, and kind of being in charge, feeling held in that sense. I think is attractive. And what, as far as captaining a boat, like while yes, that might display some means, that's something that you can fake. To your point, you can charter a boat for a maximum of $1,000, and you know you could fake that basically. And so yeah, I like the idea of seeing a person, and in this sense a man in his element, and again you get a better sense of what life would be. And I think that's pretty great. I like a boat date. Like, for me, there's very few ways for this to go badly, except if we go to the date last week with Mark and Joan. And I think that is probably what also added to the awkwardness of that date, was that it was like this big expansive boat, and like it just there all they could do is just focus on each other. And so at least this kind of breaks it up a little bit too, which I like. So
Mhm.
this is an a date for me.
Great. So I have a really important question. How come every time, including just yesterday, I brought it up again. I bring up buying a boat, and you are like, Chris, no.
I don't think we have time to take care of another
No, no. So
thing.
so actually, so I was talking to somebody who does a lot. He owns 5 boats, and what he told me is down in Miami, we are only like 5 miles from Dinner Key Marina, and at Dinner Key Marina, apparently you just call them up and you say, "Hey, I'm going to be down there in an hour." They will take your boat. They don't even store it in the water. They'll take it. They'll crane it down, drop it into the water. You go, you zip around, you come back. They throw it back up on the crane, stick it back in the marina warehouse for you. And simple, easy, no fuss. You just as long as you keep it there, no extra charge supposedly. We could do that. We can manage that, right?
We'll
It's
table
out of the
that.
water, out of the elements. No,
Let's go on to the
I want
next
to have
date.
a billowing shirt, open throttle on the water, and you'd be like, man, that Chris guy is hot right now. The skill it takes for him to be navigating this boat.
Imagine if I referred to you as my husband of almost 12 years as that Chris guy.
I mean, if I've got an open billowing shirt with ripped 6 pack and
I might not
we're out on
recognize
the
you. That's fair.
open water.
That was mean. You can cut that. I don't want to be like Hannah of Hannah and Nick on Love is
Oh
Blind.
my god. All right, let's go to date 2. So the second date is Pascal's date. They meet at a coffee shop, do a quick catch up, and then they proceed to go to his salon. At first, I thought they were going to his salon in order to meet all the people, but instead, no. Apparently, she's gonna like see the lay of the land, maybe get a little pampering done herself. I thought this was really kind of an interesting idea, but I thought it really worked because it showed it showed who he is in his element. It's also something that they can kind of share because she clearly is a woman who has been to a salon before, right? And she got to play with some rando's hair, and she got to go and get in the chair and pampered herself. And so yeah, I kind of liked it because it provided greater insight. And these are all Pascal's employees, and the way that they kind of treated him when he walked in, and the air about everything while he was there, I thought was great and meaningful for her to understand more about him. I don't think it was a great date for, learning more about each other in like a deep emotional sense.
I mean, we'll get to that when we get to the date, but let's remember, good date, bad date is we're kind of like separating the context in a way. So like
Fair, yeah.
really what the date is a bring your significant other to work day, basically.
Yeah, that's awful. You would divorce me before lunch.
I mean, I am curious. I have no idea what it is you do, as we've
I
established.
yell at people all day long. I call them idiots all day long.
I
That's
think
what I
that
do.
might be
I live.
fun to see, but yeah. So, yeah, in a sense, like, I don't, this isn't a great first date, but I do think like there is something if you're a business owner, like, I think there is something about maybe that being a stop along the way in sort of the way that it was in this case. I think that could be a nice way to really get to understand a full context of a person. And especially for Pascal, and maybe I'm projecting, his business is a big part of his identity, of course, is a huge part of his livelihood. And so it is a way that you can get to know someone, and get an understanding of how they treat their employees, how their employees and respond and react to them. And again, I think it just gives fuller context. So I think that like it's an interesting date, especially if it's something that the like significant other could engage in and participate in, but definitely not a first date thing. Like if this was a first date, it would just feel so like braggadocious.
Interesting that you take that take. I didn't like this certainly as a first date, because the inverse of that. Whereas I I feel like I'm just setting a bad precedent where you're just going to be a kept woman, and setting the stage where like I'm going to attract women that are going to be after me for my money
Mm.
and are looking to be sugar baby style type of situations. And I mean, that's not what I'm looking for personally, but I just feel like that's what you're sort of setting up for. Like, hey,
Mm.
come into my salon, sit down and get pampered. To me, says like this is going to be your life, and you can just sort of like take whatever you want whenever you want. And I think that that's not a first date type of thing. Like yes, I want to dote on you as my wife, and I want to give you all the things that you want. But I do expect that you're going to love me and respect me. And so before I give you everything that you want, I'm going to expect you to show a little love and show a little respect
Damn. Who
first, right?
hurt you? My God. That's
Well,
quite a take. Okay, date number three, also in Chicago with Jordan. And this was sort of like a food tour, I guess I would say. Would you think that's
it's
fair?
so interesting. I like the way you phrase that. It's a food tour. We talk about how much we love food tours and cooking classes. And when I was watching it, I didn't put together that it was a food tour. And I was like, this is lame and stupid. But then you say it like that, like it's a food tour. And I'm like, oh, I like food tours. This should be a higher date. But I can't get on board with it being a food tour. They
I
ate
think because you
pizza,
don't
a piece of
deep
cake,
deep dish
and a
pizza,
shot.
which is so iconic to Chicago and
But
apparently the
but
best cake in the city.
but at the end of the day, it's
And
a
then
piece
drink
of
some
pizza.
alcohol.
Yeah, it's a
That's
piece of pizza, a piece of cake, and a shot. I have a higher bar for what constitutes a food tour than that. I'm sorry, that's just my take. And also, they were like on the bridge the whole time, so like I don't
mm.
know. I didn't feel like they were roaming around. It's like it just felt like he had like went to the grocery store and just had this shit in a bag, and he just pulling it out on the side of the road on this bridge, and just like, here, have a piece of cake right here on the side of the road with dust from the cars whipping up. It was a miss for me. I didn't like any of this.
Um
Also, Jordan shouldn't be there, and I think I was having a really hard time
that's
separating
what
the
I'm saying,
fact
your
that this
bias is showing. Yeah.
yeah, like this guy should not have even been on this date, and then it is kind of a lame date on top of that. It's like it just it might just be that I can't separate the fact that he should not have been in this episode and should not have been in hometowns. And as a result, I just can't. I'm having a hard time getting on board because it wasn't an
Yeah.
all-star date anyways, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I think it was a little lackluster. Like I'm maybe being generous and calling it a food tour. But it was it and I think like I was trying to frame like what it was I was seeing, and that was the kindest frame I could put on it, because otherwise it's like, what was the purpose of this? Like Jordan saying like, I'm an eater, and so like here are things that I like to eat. Like, okay, I can see that, but then like give me one more spot, or like show me a little bit more. So I think depending on how this was billed, it left me a little unsatisfied. Okay. Then last date, we go to Chock's friend's ranch in Wichita. And it is like a big family and friends gathering, where a big portion of the date is a celebration of life for Chock's recently deceased mother.
Yeah, not a great first date.
Holy shit. When she walked in and I saw the crowd of people, I was like, oh my God, this is too much.
This is too much. Yeah.
This is a no. This is a no. If that
Now,
no.
in fairness, this is kind of the equivalent of like their fifth date, and so I think it's acceptable for like a fifth date to meet
First time
this
meeting
many
the
people.
family is essentially at a funeral.
Okay. Again, I'm
Celebration of
not
life.
saying I didn't say that yet. All I said was meeting this many people on a fifth date, I think is acceptable, right? Like I've certainly been there where it's like, okay, you know, like the first time you meet the family. Like think about it, the first time I met your entire family was at your cousin's graduation party. It was a big
Mhm.
giant event, right?
But had you not met my mom or dad before then?
The day before, maybe it was like the weekend before, you didn't want me to meet everybody there, so I had to run back for my brother's
Exactly.
birthday party. No, I had to run back for my brother's birthday party, so I was dropping you off at your parents' house, and you were like, well, just come say hello to my mom. I said the hello to your mom for maybe 2 minutes at the door, didn't even go inside. That was the meeting, and then I met the entire family the next weekend. Because I couldn't stay longer because I was late for my brother's party that he was having for his birthday, and I had a 3.5 hour drive to get there. The first time you meet the family, also being a somber event like that, I can tell you the girl I dated before you, the first time I met her entire family was at her grandfather's funeral. So being on the other side of that, there's two things I'll say about it. One is there's a lot of things going on, so it doesn't feel like people are paying attention to you. So it does take the pressure off a little bit. But you're also seeing people at their most vulnerable, and it kind of feels like I haven't really earned this yet. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like a push and pull awkward.
I
In the
know.
case of okay.
The thing that I kind of felt, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit more with like Chock specifically, but like it just felt a little bit disrespectful to the mom. Like it kind of felt like we're extorting this celebration of
I
life
agree. Yes.
for this. Like it just felt, again, another ick moment of like, ugh, like I don't
Chock
like
is filled
this.
with ick moments for me.
So let's get deeper into each of these men's hometowns.
I mean, I don't know that there necessarily is much to get deep into. This was an episode where everything was retreaded. There was almost nothing new or interesting.
Yeah.
So, but let's go. So in order, we go to Guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We already said we did the boat. To me, they're on this boat. And while I thought it was a good idea and the concept of the date was good, it was unearned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joan has
Guy
stated
being,
several
you
times.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, just yes. I mean, there was a lot of expressions of emotions that felt like you guys haven't spent enough time together, right? Joan was talking about how, it's so comfortable with Guy. When have we ever seen that? I have not seen anything comfortable. It was awkward in the kitchen when they did their cooking date together.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nothing
he
about
is
them
so
feels comfortable. It feels like men feel comfortable around him. Like he's been able
yeah.
to create a comfortable environment and put the men at ease, but like nothing about their connection feels comfortable. I feel like he leans in and she like pulls away, like
And it
nearly
always
every
comes across
time.
as really awkward and stiff when they're together.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it felt to me, Joan was really not feeling it. It didn't feel like any of this. It felt like we were just, filling
Yeah.
minutes into a show.
I know. Well, I
They
think she
talked
just
about,
likes that he likes her. Like, and I think about what she's saying, that these two guys, Pascal and Jordan, who she's like really not feeling great about because they're not being so overly expressive about
Mhm.
their feelings. They're but they are being much more real and authentic. It's so much more real for Pascal to say, "Hey, I got my heart broken a year ago. Like, I do have walls up, and it's going to take me a bit." For Jordan to say, like, my wife cheated on me, and that's been really hard to shake. And yeah, I'm not ready to get engaged. And it's like, think about the reasonableness of this.
Mm-hmm.
What Chock and what more specifically what Guy is doing, it just feels so inauthentic and almost manipulative. And I don't think their intent, he
Mm-hmm.
specifically is intending to manipulate Joan's emotions. I think he in that moment actually believes it. I hope, again, benefit of the doubt, but it's very, very manipulative, to be so, to use such intense phrasing this in this part of his and her specific journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was just an episode ago, 2 episodes ago, they said we've had no time together. Last episode, they comment on how they've had almost no time
Mm-hmm.
together. And now this episode, he's like basically in love with her and fallen for her. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, what? It's you spent an additional 10 minutes together.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, we're not
yeah,
seeing it.
yeah. I mean, so his family was lovely. As you'd expect,
Mm-hmm.
he's a great guy. His family was lovely. But, again, what real meaningful conversations happened there? It was a big group. They talked about the prom date. And instead of really talking about anything meaningful about their connection or anything like that, she's talking just about how he, did something solid for Charles, which what he did for
Mm-hmm.
Charles was a wonderful thing. But
Yeah,
like that, if that's the highlight that you have to talk about with his family,
that
tells me
doesn't
that there's
involve
not
her at
enough
all.
there.
Yeah,
Didn't
yeah,
even involve her at all. And she wasn't even
yeah.
there. Like, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like I witnessed him do this.
Yeah.
I heard secondhand that he did this.
From Charles, not even from Guy.
Right. Like,
A couple of things I can pull out from this date. Yes, family is lovely. They like their hard G names. They've got, Guy and Glenn and Greer and whoever. Like when they were introducing the family, I'm like, all right, so we have
we
a
got a
theme.
theme. Yeah.
Love a good theme. His again, sisters were lovely. And I think one thing that was constantly happening was that they were reflecting back to him how happy he was, which
Mm.
makes me think again, he genuinely believes this. I think he is in deep infatuation right now. And similar to, I think, how a lot of the women really shared about their experience on the Golden Bachelor. I think for him, what he might be getting caught up in is not love, but in this restoration of hope that it sounds like
Yeah.
really got lost. Like when he started to get choked up and say, never in a million years did I think I would say I would love again or be loved again. And I think that is what he is in love with, is
Mhm.
connecting to that feeling again. It's not Joan. And in the same way that Joan talks about Gary, Gary Turner, not this season's Gary, but
Yeah.
Gary Turner giving her this sense that like, oh, that love can be possible for me again. I think that is what more like that is what Guy is really speaking to. So I did want to call that out. I also thought it was interesting that Guy, after talking to his daughter Mackenzie, um, and she's kind of saying like, I've seen you be heartbroken. I don't want that to happen to you again. And Guy kind of reflects in his ITM that his kids are being really parental to him and kind of like seeing that role switch. And I think it is such an interesting time in just like lifespan development for these individuals, these cast members on the show, that is what is happening in real time. And so like being able to see those dynamics not only play out with Guy and his family, but in the other families too, I thought was, again, we're seeing a role reversal than what we typically see on Hometowns in this franchise.
Mm-hmm. And if all of you thought that was really insightful commentary, that life stage stuff that you're talking about, development, is part of the college course that Amy teaches. So you go ahead and you just enroll in Master of Social Work program. And you could get firsthand education hearing about all that lifestyle development stuff.
Lifespan.
Lifestyle. What I say? Lifestyle. I'm a lifestyle development guy. I just bought this shirt. It's a new lifestyle. All right. Yeah, my final takeaway on Guy is that none of this felt earned, deserved, or believable. And I don't think Joan was feeling it. I think he was just, a guy that she knew she wasn't going to pick, so it would be easy going into the finale. You
Mm-hmm.
know, whereas somebody like Jonathan, who would have been infinitely more interesting,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's not how math works. But he would be more interesting and more entertaining. But I also think it would be harder for her to eliminate him deeper into the show.
Okay, so
And so she did herself a solid by
I'm gonna
getting rid of.
reference another show that you haven't watched, and I'm gonna use a little bit of crude language. So, audience, I apologize. On Shrinking, I've been season 2 just started again, and I love that show. I definitely love it a lot, especially being a
Never even
therapist.
heard of it.
It's so good. It's so
No, it's
good.
not.
Jason Segel, Harrison Ford. I mean,
I know him.
it's really good. Harrison Ford's hilarious.
Jason Segel
Anyway,
sounds like a name I would know.
you would know him from Forgetting Sarah Marshall,
Oh, I like that movie. Which one's he?
like the guy that gets broken up with by Sarah Marshall, main
Okay.
character.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's not terrible.
Anyway, so in case people haven't watched it, I won't spoil it. I'll try to be discreet. In this show, Jason Segel and Harrison Ford and another woman in the show, her name's Gabby. They're all therapists in a group practice, and Jason Segel's character is Jimmy. His wife dies a year ago suddenly in a car accident, and it really wrecks him emotionally and also really impacts his practice, his therapeutic practice, and what he does. And so the show is essentially about him wrestling with his own grief and him doing really unethical shit as a therapist. But anyway, on the side, there is a sexual relationship that happens between Jimmy and another character, and the other character refers to him as Safe Dick, as a person that she can have sex with, and the sex is like meets her need, but like there's no chance that she's ever really going to have a relationship with him, and so there's like a lot of safety there. And so like they kind of use this concept of Safe Dick. Harrison Ford's character like thinks about that a lot as it relates to a relationship that he's having with a woman, where it's like kind of good and fun, but like no strings attached, and you're not going to really have the opportunity to get attached is the idea. And
It's
that
not
is what
how
Guy
human
feels
behavior
like.
works, but okay.
Well, no, and in this show it doesn't play out that way either, but like that's what this situation feels like with Guy. Like I could keep him
Mhm.
around, like it's not going to threaten the other relationships that I'm having, but he's still like a fun enough guy or fine enough guy to just like
Mhm.
carry along to the next stage.
The problem is she can't sell it. That's the problem.
No, I know. She really,
She's
really
not an
can't.
actress.
And when you see the disparity between the way she engages with Guy and the way she engages with Chock, it's just like it's
Or Pascal.
you
Yeah.
really you can't fake it. You just can't fake
Mhm.
it.
Yep. And it's the same thing with Jordan, right? I mean, the both of them together. That like
I
it's
forgot. I
so
forget
clear.
that date entirely. So when we get there, that'll be interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move into Pascal. Let's go to
Yeah.
Chicago.
I mean, this was really for me the highlight of the entire episode. Um, Look, it's pretty clear that his staff, loves him. The big personality. His salon is beautiful. Looks
Mm-hmm.
super
It's
cool.
huge.
It's huge. Yeah. I mean, I have not been in salons, but from the little I know about him, I feel like that looks like a pretty high end one. Um,
Mm-hmm. In a big
you know,
city, like that's meaningful.
Yep, I liked the interaction with the family. Right, there's a couple things I did think that
Mm-hmm.
his daughter felt more like a fan of the show and didn't provide much meaningful context to anything. It just felt more like she was just so super giddy and just following the script of what she's supposed to say. But I did think the son added a lot of interesting context. I had completely forgotten about the letter that was in episode one.
Mm.
And thinking back on that, he had read her the letter, his son had written him. And part of me at that point in time felt like, okay, who's this French guy with the accent? We didn't really know much about him, but we quickly were learning that he was a little high maintenance and stuff like that. And the letter was in vast contrast to what we were seeing on screen, and so you kind of forget about the letter, because it's buried among all this kind of nonsense that he's doing all the time. And then you bring it back and suddenly it makes sense. Like he really is a people person. He really is a family person. It's so clear he has a good family and he really was a good, solid father. And it's clear his kids really love him and respect him. And that letter, where it felt maybe a little bit manipulative at the very front end of things, now with the context, it's like, no, I actually think it was probably a pretty heartfelt letter. Like we all know I'm a skeptic. If you come in with a letter and you say, this so-and-so wrote me this letter, unless so-and-so says, yes, I wrote that letter, I don't believe anything's real. Right. Like it's just my default position. But maybe that says more about me than everybody else. But yeah, my perception of Pascal changed for the positive. I've always liked Pascal, like just as a character.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what the level of maturity was going to be. And the level of giving, he felt like he could be a taker and maybe not a giver. And my perception of him has significantly changed after seeing him with his family.
I totally agree. And you just captured it so well in what you just said is giving this portrayal of being a giver. I'm sorry, being a taker rather than a giver, and seeing Pascal like almost with his family gave us more of a three-dimensional view. Like, and it's so clear that we are seeing an edited show that really shows you just one side, one angle of a person. And so being able to see Pascal like as a more well-rounded, like a more of a 360 view, I thought was
less of a
so,
caricature of a person and
yeah,
actually a person. Yeah.
a full person. Yeah, I actually I loved it, and I think hearing the context of his previous relationships, of him doing a lot of dating, I thought was also meaningful to who and how he is. I also have been thinking a lot about his experience being an immigrant and what that has meant for his identity, especially coming in and not speaking the language and probably having this desire or feeling this need that he needs to fit in, to perform, to whatever, because he's not from here, and he needing to kind of prove himself in a way. And I wonder how much of that experience of being an immigrant has also framed and influenced the way that he shows up in these social settings as kind of like this big kind of like peacock personality. And so being able to see him really in his element with people that he doesn't need to perform for necessarily was so endearing.
Yeah, I agree. I loved every part of it. It was pretty clear, contrasting Pascal with Guy, that there's no chance that she has a better connection with Guy and Guy would somehow stick around.
I mean, at this point, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It felt like it in her deliberation leading up to the rose ceremony, it seemed like she was so keen on Chock and Guy, like I said, because they're so demonstrative in their words with how they feel. And she was like, I'm not feeling great about Pascal and Jordan. I don't know if they'd pick me. And it's like, ugh, like another low moment for me, like where I feel like Pascal is the only one that's thinking about this practically. Like what he says to his daughter, like one of his closing remarks is like, I the next step is to talk logistics. How do we make this work? Yes, Pascal, great question. That that is,
especially
that
when we
is
just
going to
saw
be
the
important to
Golden
know.
Bachelor go down in flames because of lack of logistical planning.
Right. And it's so interesting to kind of see this guy that like presents in this way of, wealth and richness, almost like this fantasy style life, but he is the one that seems to be most grounded in reality. And I think that is, again, the interesting thing about watching an edited show is just you can't buy the frame.
His family was a family I liked the most.
Me too.
Yep. All right. So Jordan,
Why not?
this was what a snooze fest. So they meet at the bridge, they do the pseudo food tour thing, then we go back to the house. They basically just talk about how Jordan can't ice skate. They met with the brothers, who said nothing meaningful. Joan, talks about worrying about not being picked with Jordan's daughter, and Jordan's daughter doesn't say anything that would give her more confidence. The daughter then goes and talks to Jordan and basically says, yeah, I don't think he's going to pick her, basically, right? It's in her face camera. Like, this was so boring, and at the same time confirming that all of Joan's fears. There was nobody interesting. There was no interesting conversations. There was no new information shed. what am I missing? Why did production even do this to us?
Yeah, why are we here? Why is he here? I just and like he doesn't even seem that into her. I mean, to the extent that like beyond the fact that she's a gorgeous woman,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just kind of like, okay, like you like her just fine, and like, but like that's it. I mean, and I guess they don't have enough of a connection to know if they really like each other, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just sort of like I
So
found
I'm not
myself.
being unfair in my criticism of this statement. Like,
No, no, I don't think so. I mean, you know, the daughter was able to give more insight than Jordan would have. I wish we heard that from Jordan in that,
mm-hmm.
like, you know, he leads with humor as a way to try to protect himself from getting hurt and not be as vulnerable. Great to know. But you know what's really troubling about that is one of the qualities that Joan likes about Jordan is his humor and his funness, and to know that that's all a defense mechanism is big red flag. So
Hmm.
I just think that that was also, you know, I'm blank. I was truthfully a little zoning in and out on this day because it was so boring. So forgive me for not knowing that daughter's name, but I thought she was really insightful and she really knew her dad. And yeah, when she called him out on saying like, yeah, she thinks you're not going to pick her, and she says you have your walls up, and he's like, really, I do. It's just like,
Yeah.
we what, come
I
on.
wrote down, daughter calls him on his walls being up, semicolon. He seems confused by her statement.
And Joan even reflects and says like that's a 10-year wall to break down. And yeah, the insinuation there is, well, A, do I want to? But B, do we have enough time realistically to break this wall down? No. Like this again, such a waste. I'm so frustrated. Like if why was this her final four? Like and maybe it's like if she thought she brought, you know, Jonathan or Mark, that they would have gotten more
Keith.
attached, maybe, or Keith, whatever. Like maybe that's it. Like as you've kind of said, like as a hypothesis, like trying to spare those men that were more attached, like didn't not wanting to lead them on.
And
Well,
herself. I mean, it probably would have been agonizing dragging
yeah.
some of these other men on, as well.
But this was I'm ready to move on.
I'm ready to move on to a new show. I think we knew the conclusion to this last week, so it just feels like these
Imagine
last
she
couple of
picks
weeks are.
Guy. We've been talking all this shit and she
I'm
picks Guy.
just I just can't imagine that would be the case. But so the my last comment on Joan is that she says she's basically saying that she's really confused, but she calls giving a rose to Jordan as a leap of faith. I wanted to get your take on this. Is this a red flag to you that she's saying that this is a leap of faith if she decides to give him a rose? Or am I just misconstruing what she's talking about here?
Well, what do you think she's saying when she's saying that?
I look at this as she's going to Vegas, hitting the roulette table, and she's putting all her money down on either black or red, and maybe it's going to work out, and maybe it's not, and she's just hoping that somehow this is going to work out. Like a leap of faith. I mean, when you really think about it, right? This is obviously a biblical reference, right? And what it basically means is you are putting
Actually,
all
a
your
leap
hope.
into faith.
You are correct. Wow, look at you. Yeah, leap into faith. Yep. So ultimately, right, what this is intended to mean from more of the older literature, right, is that you have such faith in the other party to catch you, right, to support you, right, to shelter you, that you are taking a leap, and by you leaping, you are giving yourself over to this other, whether
Right.
it's
You're trusting. Yeah.
yeah, and,
There's
and trust.
trust.
And so a leap of faith, if we're just talking what it truly actually means, is that you have so much faith in this other person or this other being, if it's from a religious context, that they are going to catch you, and that what you are doing to them is you are demonstrating to them how much you trust them. The problem is that that's not actually how it gets used in modern parlance, right? In modern parlance, it basically kind of means the inverse, in that I want this to work out, but I don't know if it is, and it's sort of a leap of faith, i.e., I'm just kind of taking a coin flip chance on this, hoping that it's going to work out. Faith has lost its meaning in kind of modern modern context to more mean you know a chance that I hope will work out instead of what it really means, and that is a true deep-seated belief that something will work out, which is kind of sad. So she is of an older generation, so she might lean more towards the correct definition or the correct context of this phrase. But yeah, I don't see how it could be a leap of faith in either context. That's the problem, right? We have no evidence whatsoever that he is going to catch her, shelter her, and it's all going to work out. We have no evidence whatsoever that this is even a coin flip possibility, right? This feels like a 95-5 type of proposition here that he is not going to be what she wants. So I don't even know what a leap of faith means in this context. Like, what's the bar, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Am I being too critical
No,
here?
no, I don't think so at all. I mean, I find that entertaining, that leap of faith with Jordan, it like so completely absurd because like Joan, just say you're turned off by this. Just say he's not ready and you don't like that. Just say that. Like why do we need to like call it something that it's not? Like just say that you're unsure because he's unsure, or you're sure that you're not in because of his lack of being sure and secure, and just call it a day. Like I feel like stop lying to me. I think that I'm so frustrated watching this episode because like
They
don't
think we're
bullshit
idiots.
me. Yeah, I feel that that's how I'm honestly feeling in this episode is like stop bullshitting me. Like I'm not stupid. Like stop.
Mm-hmm.
We can all see what's going on. Like just stop. And the more that they kind of push this framing, the more I feel like your mom's reaction, it was so valid of like, this is all just fake bullshit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and while like, yes, I know it's a show and yes, I know all of that, but like, I need to suspend some disbelief here in order to watch it. And so do we all. So please let me maintain the fantasy with some authenticity. Like we need to trust you in some way. And I just, the trustworthiness for me, this episode was gone.
Yeah, we're out of the trust tree.
We're out of the trust tree. Yes.
Yep. All
Circle of
right.
trust is broken.
Yeah, 100% agree. So off to Chock in Wichita, Kansas.
Yes.
So we already talked
Me
about some
trying
good
to
date.
spell Wichita was embarrassing.
Uh, I don't know if I got it right either. I'm not a good speller. That's not one of the skills. I'm more of a open shirt, boating, full throttle kind of guy. So I
Captain
nice.
Chris.
I'm so happy when one of my jokes lands. So all right. She calls him in her face to camera leading up to this date that he's fun and kind. What evidence do we have to suggest that he is either of those things?
I, I I'm also laughing because she has said that about every man. Like, and
Fair,
maybe that's just
fair.
her, like again, her projection. That's what she's looking for. That's who
Mhm.
John was, and so she's looking for fun and kind. And so like she's painting everything with that brush. She's
Yeah.
seeing what she wants to see.
So she meets him at the most lackluster of the four spots, right? She meets him on basically a gravel road in the middle of farm country, which fine, but I mean, the excitement that she has clearly unmatched by the other three dates. And this is by far the least interesting location so far that we're at. So that tells you something already, right? Like, the environment for the other date should have at least given a little bit of a bolstering to her mood. And here she is in the most dour of the four locations, and she's still the happiest. That was my first, if I needed another piece of evidence to say, oh, I know where this is ending. Again, that's where it is. They were so excited to see each other. The problem with this date is that there wasn't anything to it. They literally just go to this farm, they do the memorial service thingy, tree planting thing, and then they hang out here, and it's just the entire families are just basically giving a love fest to Chock. I'm not going to say it didn't feel genuine. I actually was really surprised at how loving everyone was towards Chock, to the point where I was confused because the responses by the family was out of sync with what I would expect to see based on who I've seen on this show.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so my question is, are his family good actors,
mm-hmm.
or is what we're seeing on the show not reflective, or
I don't know.
something
I mean,
else?
again always want to give the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm thinking about his conversation with his dad, who, by the way, also looks great. I don't how old must his dad be, but he looked pretty good
All
considering.
four of these families, for the most part, except for Guy's family, I guess. All look like they aged extraordinarily well, which I
Yeah,
guess is
yeah.
what you'd expect, because you're not going to bring on a 70-year-old person who's, barely able to move. So presumably there's some genetics and maybe some consciousness around health if you're still vibrant enough to, at 70, to go out and, you know, go play tackle kickball, basically, right? Um,
But his dad, um, calls him out on wearing that coat of armor, and so it was making me think, like, the way that I experienced Chalk is as this like intense, rigid, kind of like really type A guy, and there's a part of me that wonders how much of that is just like, again, like a vulnerability shield, and
mhm.
maybe with his family, when he does feel comfortable, he does feel safe, he can be himself, and that comes down, and maybe they do see a different side of him than we do, given the cameras, given like he's in a risky situation,
Mhm.
and finding love, like that could be an explanation, but I don't know, but there did seem to be a disconnect. But this is, I didn't come away from this feeling as though I saw Chalk in a different light, where I feel like I saw that with Pascal, right? Like
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
I still was kind of like, I still think that you're rigid. I still think that you're intense. I still think that you're competitive. Like that he proclaimed, like, I got the first kiss, I got the first date, and I'm gonna get the last kiss. I was like, is that why we're here? Is that what we're doing? Okay, Chalk.
I mean, I don't like Chock, but I do want to say that I feel really, really good about being your last first kiss. Just gonna say it. I actually, so I feel Chock a little bit here. I
Yeah,
feel
but
I
you
feel
can
Chock.
say that confidently because we are married. Chalk is one of four. Settle
It is
down.
fair. Yeah. Well, I think he knows he's winning at this point too. But yeah, I agree
But it's
with you
more so
entirely.
that it's like this competition thing with him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's no question he's the one who exhibits the most alpha-like qualities.
Mhm.
He's also been, in a lot of ways, the least friendly. I don't know if least friendly is fair, but he's the one in the house, in the mansion, who is most willing to step on toes. And it
Yeah.
never really came to that. None of the other guys were really going to engage. But there were definitely moments where, if there was another one of him in the house,
Hmm.
you could have seen some fireworks.
Hmm.
And in some ways, like, if this is going to be the final four that we're going to have, like, if we're going to have basically two people have zero shot of winning, and we've got two people that you know could possibly win, then it would have been nice if there was at least another Chalk, so that we could have gotten a little bit of drama to just
Hmm.
fill up the minutes and make something a little more entertaining. But I digress. We got what we got, and it is what it is. But I agree with you entirely when you said that you didn't come away, even though the family turned out to be a little bit different than we were expecting. I didn't come away thinking differently of Chalk. What I came away with was confusion, because the family is not what I was expecting, right? And nowhere in the actual date did I get any sort of reconciliation between the Chalk I know,
Mm,
the Chalk that's being represented by the family. These two are not reconciling.
I
With
know.
Pascal, we had the same situation where the family, and what we saw with the family and what we saw, on the show, were two different Pascals. But what we saw was the blending of them, and you
The
understood
integration. Yeah.
the integration. You understood, right? Um, how these two people are the same person. With Chalk, we never got that. It just feels like a split personality that just doesn't
Hmm.
make any sense. And that's my big problem with Chalk.
Yeah. And I felt like I think the thing that also made me a little, concerned is
Icked.
too strong a word. I've been using icked all day. But I keep thinking about his conversation with his dad. And
Mhm.
his dad is basically saying to him, I see love. And Chock is like, no, just strong feelings. And it's like, oh gosh, like you like not even a chip away at this like glacier that is Chock. And that I think made me feel like I don't I don't know how ready he is. How can I buy the authenticity that he like on the one hand he's kind of like saying he's all in, but on the other hand he's saying I don't love her yet. And like again, it's fair for him to say I don't love her yet. It's only been a few weeks, but it just felt like can you put your guard down? Can you put your ego down in order to lean into love? I don't know that he can. Like he
Mhm.
also says to Joan um after she says something so beautiful and so meaningful. She talks about um I have been noticing that I'm feeling more guilty as I think about what my future could be. It's no longer this empty black hole. Like I'm able to see it more, and that's creating more guilt. But I actually think that's a good thing that my guilt is growing because that means that I'm like developing these new feelings and then I'm moving on, insinuating with Chock. And he hugs
Mhm.
her. And what does he say? Promise me you're not going to break my heart. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
And
not.
how dare you? How dare you put her on the spot like that?
Yeah, well, one, it was bringing it back to himself instead of
Yeah.
letting it sit with her and what she's currently going through. Um, yeah, bad luck. But Chalk is filled with these bad looks. That's
Mm-hmm.
why when she keeps talking about her connection and she's so excited, like, what are we missing? And I
Mm-hmm.
just I can't put my finger on it. Like, we've seen more of Chalk than she's seen of him because we get
Yeah.
him in the house too, right?
Right.
And you know, who he is with her is the same person we're seeing in the house, and I don't like
Right.
any of it. And
Well,
so I'm
he's
just
not one of these
confused.
guys that we see forming these nice brotherly
Mhm.
connections with the other guys. Like it feels like there's not a lot of softness there. And I don't
Mhm.
mean softness like in terms of like not masculinity, but like inability to be like caring and warm. And I think
Mhm.
that a masculine man can do that. Um and again not in maybe the way I'm not suggesting in the 2024 construction or deconstruction of masculinity. I mean, like Joan is looking for a traditional man, and I think that what she wants is not also what we're seeing from Chock either.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know that I know what Joan wants anymore because
That's fair.
I Guy and Jordan are there. So if they're really 3 and 4, then I have no idea. Anything else before we go to the rose ceremony?
No, let's do it.
All right. So not surprising. Chuck gets the first rose. Is surprising. Guy gets the second rose. Why? Do not know. But of course,
I
it made it
said
anticlimactic for the third.
because all she cares about is these two
Affirmation.
men. Yeah, words of affirmation.
Yeah. I guess we know her love language. So the third one goes to Pascal, which obviously, we all thought, was in the top two. Then we
Well,
go to, oh,
I think the only suspenseful thing is she going to not give out a third rose? That's where I thought we were going.
I was kind of hoping that we would just jump to two, but unfortunately we went to three. So the one who goes home obviously is Jordan. I mean,
Mhm.
we've said enough about Jordan. Like,
Yeah, no
boring,
surprises.
forgettable, no interest. She had red flags left and right. Should have never even made it this far.
Mhm.
He, in a lot of ways, was just like the Rachel of this season. That's kind of how it feels
You
with
love
Jordan.
calling back to that. But yeah, so we have our top 3. It looks like they are, finally getting out of the mansion, getting out of
This
LA
whole episode
area.
there, I didn't understand that when they said we're leaving the mansion. It's like, you haven't been in the mansion this whole week. You guys have been home.
Well, yeah, they did leave and then they had to come back for the rose ceremony. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we get to travel a little bit and then yeah, next week we have fantasy suites and we're in the home stretch.
And what I'm really disappointed for next week, I'm gonna pre prep the thorn for next week, is that fantasy suites is a time where we really want to see the final run, And
Yeah.
3 people at Fantasy Suites in a 90-minute episode does not feel like we're going to get what we need from an audience perspective to really have any real insight into what's going on. So I just think that
Yeah.
this is already a bad move
Yeah,
on
we'll
production's part.
we'll see. It looks like there might be some drama that we see previewed as it relates to Pascal potentially. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
All right, Rose and Thorn.
Yeah, go ahead. Kick us off.
I'm happy you asked about my rose this week.
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that. Oh boy. I mean, I think the hardest part of this episode is finding a rose. But I think I'm just gonna go with the one that I've already kind of said. My perception of Pascal, I liked him as a caricature cardboard cutout of a human being before. Seeing him as a full-fledged human being, totally into. Really
Mhm.
liked Pascal. Loved his family. Loved the fact that I'm fairly certain his son was trying to snake Joan away. And his daughter was lovely, even if
Mhm.
she just seemed like a super fan of the show and wasn't necessarily I'd say attached to real reality in the moment. But no, I just that was a highlight of the episode for me. And I love that I got to see this new side of Pascal. And I love that this deep into the season, my opinion of somebody can change.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, for me it's like it grows, right? Like my opinion of Pascal definitely
Mhm.
grew. And yeah, I would say similarly, like in terms of A Rose, I think, yeah, meeting Pascal's family, just seeing his life, because it also made it clear like this wasn't all talk in a way, like this
Mhm.
was real, um, like his success and
Mhm.
his wealth, but also like that there is a deeper side to it too. So I think that was nice. I thought his grandson was also adorable,
I
and
hate I it always feels I hate when they bring the grandkids in. I
yeah,
hate it so much.
yeah,
I'm
I
a
thought he
firm
was cute.
believer, like if you see people's social media and they have their like young children on their social media pages or on their dating profiles and stuff like that. I just I it just gives me
Feels
such the
exploitive
creep
too.
feel.
Yeah.
And also like it's one thing if you have a locked in profile and everything's private and stuff like that. Okay, fine. But the second you have like a public profile or you have like a dating profile or stuff like that, it just and you have your young
Sounds
children
like
on
I
it.
know what your thorn is.
I just no. I was actually going to go with something different, but I hate it. I'm consistent in this. I don't want to see if you're under the age of 12. I don't want to see you being exploited, for TV.
Yeah.
In reality TV. I think reality TV is damaging enough to society. I don't want to see 5, 10 year olds engaged in it in any way. So back to your rose.
I really, really enjoyed getting to see Lake Tahoe. It's a literally a place that I've only heard about. I don't think I've ever really seen a photo. So I thought it was really beautiful. And I liked getting to see parts of our country that have not been exposed to yet. So that, that's a cool thing about hometowns is that we get to experience different parts of the country that we live in, and I just appreciated that. And I think along with that, I think it's hugely vulnerable to have families get involved, and I really appreciated the vulnerability that the families gave. I thought the families were A+ across the board. I mean, Pascal's family was, in my opinion, the top, but I thought this was such a good grouping of families, and that was also really nice to see too.
Mm-hmm. And what about your thorn this week?
I mean, is it not obvious? I think ABC/Joan gets my thorn this week. I just feel
Lied to?
you're playing me. Like
Yeah.
don't play me.
Manipulated?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm also giving production the thorn this week. I will go with the pacing of the episode, which was atrocious. Um, Too much content into too little time, and none of the content was interesting. And that's the problem. Is like if you're going to give us 4 people in 90 minutes, you better have something interesting going on in at least one of those, and it just
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so pacing for me, and the choice of having 4 instead of 3 go to hometowns if you were going to only do a 90-minute episode, clear
Mhm.
thorns for me. So shall we
Yeah.
shall we do it?
I mean, please. It's like the thing that I've been looking forward to for the
The
last,
moment
90
that
minutes.
everybody has been waiting for, Dancing with the Stars. So let's just remind everybody that you and I, we do a podcast about reality TV and Bachelor Nation specifically. We don't watch Dancing with the Stars. But since Dancing with the Stars is owned by the same parent company as the Bachelor Nation, sometimes we get Joey and Jen and other Bachelor Nation people
get a
on the show.
crossover, yeah.
And thus we must do a crossover. So we can't just do two people. So we had to pick a third. The third contestant is Danny Amendola. Why? As everybody remembers at this point, because I'm a New England Patriots fan. And thus he is going to be our third. And it's a good barbell because we've got, just from a macro level, we've got an excellent dancer, we've got a mediocre dancer, and we've got an atrocious dancer. And thus we can really see the whole gamut of what we're dealing with.
I mean, I looked up the scores. We haven't discussed the performances. I think that you are going to be surprised to know the scores.
Yes. So to remind everybody, I don't actually watch the show. I watch 1 minute clips on YouTube. I don't watch the scoring. I don't hear the judges' commentary. So what you're getting is strictly my opinions. And to remind everybody as well, Amy and I are amateur ballroom dancers. We have been for about 12 years. We have won some amateur ballroom dancing competitions. And thus, we kind of have a clue what we're talking about. So, shall we get into it?
Yeah. Who do you want to start with?
Let's start with the theme, Disney theme.
Mm-hmm.
Which, since both these stations are owned by Disney, seems appropriate. We did a Disney themed one. We did a what's the Belle and the Beast? What's that? What was that
Beauty
movie
and
called?
the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast. You wore this beautiful yellow, little yellow dress, and I wore a yellow tie with a whatever
blue
I wore.
Shirt,
I don't remember. Yeah, blue shirt. It was
we did a bolero to Tale as Old as Time.
Yeah, that's still one of my favorite.
I don't know the exact name of the song.
Yep. So there's one of my favorite steps that we ever did was this spinning step. It was a beautiful step. We've only ever done it in that one routine. Still to this day, one of my favorite steps we've ever done. But going to our three, shall we start with Jen this week?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So Jen performed a rumba to Kiss the Girl from The Little Mermaid.
Mm-hmm. Nice little remix of that song, right? I actually really liked this version.
I liked it too.
Yeah, I mean, last week I was very critical. I hated all three songs that all three of them did. This week, it was a great little remix. What did you think of the performance? The fog rolling in?
Yeah. Okay.
Why was she combing her hair with a fork? Is that from The Little Mermaid?
That's a dingle hopper. Yeah, that's definitely from the movie. So she finds a fork in like kind of a ship or whatever, and she brings it to her pal Scuttle, the seagull, and he with all of the confidence in the world tells her that it's called a dingle hopper, and humans use it to brush their hair, and so she does that, and she does that in the presence of a human, Prince Eric, at one point, because that's what she knows. So it's very iconic to the movie.
Okay.
What did I think of this performance? So I watched it like right when I got up at like 5 this morning, and then I watched it a little bit later. My first pass through, I thought the beginning half was really beautiful. I thought that she had really nice lines. I thought that her hip movement was great. And then it seemed like she kind of lost her footing a bit. Like she didn't feel like she had control of her feet. It felt like she was kind of being dragged along a little bit or lost her balance. But she started strong, and then I felt like she had a shakier finish. When I watched it the second time, I had a much more favorable opinion of it and thought that she did a better job than I initially thought. But I think part of me truly was biased because of the song. And yeah, that's my initial thought.
Okay. I thought the routine itself was not particularly technical, and I thought it was boring. I thought the best part was the actual song itself. I agree that she started strong, and then there was like this sort of inside turn into kind of a shadow, not really a shadow position, but
that's when it fell apart.
That's exactly. You could tell she lost her footing and lost her
Yeah.
step, and she never quite recovered after that.
Yeah.
I do agree that she had good lines. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I feel like it's so unfair to judge the choreography, because think the difference between her and Joey and Danny is that the star of the choreography are their pro partners who are women. And
Oh,
so
I agree. Yeah.
it's so unfair. Like the choreography, like, you know, Sasha, her pro, isn't showcasing himself in the way that, you know, like it just it
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
unfair.
I said this at the beginning of the season. There's a Title IX issue here, right? Where men and women should not be competing in the same categories together in
Mm-hmm.
dance, because the woman is the picture, the man is the frame. The woman is the one who is doing the spectacular show and what people are
Mm-hmm.
watching, and the man is just putting her in position to do the fancy things. So a man being led in a showcase like this, or a man leading a pro, an amateur leading a female pro, he can be back led and she can go on and
Mm-hmm.
do amazing and
Mm-hmm.
fancy things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Sasha can lead Jen through her routine, but he can't give her
The
Whitney, or what's her name,
performance, yeah.
Jenna,
Jenna,
performance
yeah.
ability. And so, there's a reason why there's a men's and women's division in singles competition if you're going,
Mm-hmm.
amateur with a pro, right? We don't, when we would go and compete, we would do some couples competitions together, and then we would do some singles competitions. And those singles competitions are gendered, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this is why, because you're absolutely right. It is not actually fair. And I'm sure the judges are probably taking that into account in a lot of ways. But from the perspective of the crowd, like they don't, the average crowd is not
Mm-hmm.
going to really
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally understand this, right? But that being
Right.
said, we've seen her do more interesting performances. It was last week was a real boring performance. This week was
Mm-hmm.
another boring one. I don't think that the routine itself was particularly inspired by Sasha. I did not like the fog rolling in. I said I thought it was smart when they hid her lower half when she
Mm-hmm.
was doing the tango, because hide and obfuscate the foot problems that she's gonna have in a more challenging dance. But this is rumba, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rumba is this is the slow Latin dance. This is not, all ballroom dances are hard, but this is not among the hardest of the dances. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely would
Mm-hmm.
probably be in the lower half in terms of
Mm-hmm.
challenging. And so to have the fog rolling in, to me, just felt like, oh, do you know there's a problem and you're trying
Yeah.
to cover it over? Now, probably not. That's me just tinfoil hatting it, right? But like, I didn't like it, and then for it to be a boring routine on top of it. But that being said, it was a great song, and I did think that the first half of it was strong. But I would not have scored it particularly high.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will tell you that they got 8s across the board.
Too high.
And so the judges are being criticized for their scoring, because like as we talked about, I think last week, like how can a dance, like so many dancers, their ability is so different, and again, it
Mhm.
feels unfair to give this dance 8s across the board and another seemingly more challenging dance 8s across the board. Like, what are you actually scoring?
Yeah.
And what it appears that they are also scoring is improvement week over week,
Mhm.
which I guess you can
In my mind,
argue.
Jen has regressed. So I think she
I
was
think she's.
better in,
I think in
week
some ways
3.
she's. Yeah, yeah. I think that was her. The week where there was hairband and
Yeah.
um whatever else that was that week, where there were 2 dances. I think that was her strongest week, but she
Yeah.
seemed to plateau in my mind.
Yeah.
So yes, so she got 8s across the board, and Bruno, one of the judges, added that she slightly messed up and lost a bit of balance. So I definitely saw that, but one of the
Yeah.
judges said that this was her best dance so far.
Yeah. He's wrong.
It was she,
I
Carrie
mean,
Ann. But yeah,
he's just objectively wrong, but that's okay. All right. Should we go to Danny next?
sure.
All right. I mean, I think my commentary for Danny could almost be the same this week as it was last week. He does jazz. Again, guess what? Just like contemporary last week, not a real dance. So what did
Not a
Whitney
ballroom
realize?
dance.
Not a real dance. So what does Whitney do? She realizes after 3 weeks that he's not going to be able to hang in true ballroom. So she puts him in a contemporary routine where it's basically a theater performance, comes back has his best performance of the season, comes back and basically doubles down on it, going into another, that you can do whatever you want in this thing. There's no steps. There's no like legitimate like, oh my God, that was a terrible open box. No, you're not getting it. You can kind of do whatever you want. And thus it's really hard to grade it because it's basically just another lifts and tricks performance. And on that scale, though, on a performative scale, it was fantastic. Like, it was definitely, he felt comfortable again. And it had some really wow, fun moments. But again, what do we keep saying? Timing is a serious issue. When he had to be on time, when they disconnected and they're doing their sort of, side by side steps, he's way off time. He's looking more comfortable and
looking more confident.
Looking more confident. But there's a lot of this is Whitney. Whitney is doing a lot of work in these routines.
Doing the most.
She is carrying these routines. And she is strategically doing a brilliant job of making sure that she is putting him in the least damaging dances, in the least damaging situations. And so I give Whitney an A+ for, both strategically as well as just as a dancer. Like she is playing this perfectly. I think she fundamentally understands Danny's weaknesses, and she's just out strategizing. I think a lot of at least the other two competitors. She's out strategizing them. So But again, I will give Danny credit. Like, it was a fun routine. Like it looked fun. Regardless of the fact that Whitney was carrying it. Ignore the timings for a second. There was some good lifts and tricks in there. It was fun.
Yeah, it was very cool. So they performed to Bye 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 from Deadpool and Wolverine, which we've both not seen. Apparently they incorporated the movie's fight sequence into the dance. And so like it was able to emulate parts of that movie, which is cool. Another judge referred to it as martial arts with the stars. Like that's what it looked like. But he got 3 9s. Like he got, I think, the highest score of the night. And in some ways, again, like
if you didn't actually dance a dance, how do you get 9s? You didn't do a dance. But okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But and maybe this is, I'd be curious to see what they do next week. Like now Danny with this added confidence of 2 really strong weeks, like 2 weeks in a row with the highest scores highest scores. Like, what might that mean? I think they're also coming off of, they Whitney specifically went viral for that leg move where she was laying on the ground.
For last week you're talking about.
And, and how many people, it's all over the internet, people trying to recreate it. So I think they're both riding this high, right? So with the added confidence, I wonder how that might show up in a more traditional ballroom dance next week.
So what Whitney's step last week was like? So there's a wide receiver in the NFL, right? Odell Beckham Jr. This guy had this amazing one-handed catch. It was like this long bomb, one-handed catch in the end zone that you just think like no human being would ever be able to one-hand a catch like that. And he went viral. He literally made his entire career off of this one catch. And now, like almost probably a decade ago, that was, every single wide receiver in college and high school, they literally now practice one-handed catches because of that one play in the NFL. That's sort of what it feels like with this Whitney thing. It's like, I just feel like it's like, oh, people are going to like practice this type of thing because it's so beautiful and so impressive and so cool. And it just feels like something where if you work and work and work, you will eventually be able to do it. You just have to build up the core strength and build up the thigh strength to do it. That's sort of what the Whitney thing feels like for me. Like I could see like 5 years from now, we see a whole bunch of people do it all doing the Whitney, so to speak. Right.
Yeah.
Literally Odell Beckham Jr.'s catch, that one catch changed the face of wide receivers in the NFL for a decade.
Wow. I'll have to look it up after.
Yeah. All right, Joey.
Yes. So Joey and Jenna dance a samba to a song from Tarzan, which I've also never seen.
Yeah, I basically haven't seen any Disney movies. So let's just talk about the samba for a second here. Samba is probably the most challenging dance, certainly the most challenging of the kind of core dances. in the Latin, slash
Yeah.
kind of
Your body
rhythm
has to
dances.
do so many seemingly opposing things at the
Yeah.
same time.
So the thing with this dance is that you have pelvic tilt happening, where you have to do this like constant pelvic tilt that requires a ton of core strength. You're working a lot on you have your calves and your quads are doing a ton of work because you're really kind of constantly bouncing on your feet. And then you have a complete disconnection between your upper torso and your lower torso, but
Mhm.
you're also doing what we call Cuban motion, where your body is rotating in a figure eight. That your lower torso is rotating in figure eight. Now, do all of those at the same time.
Mhm.
Two timing. And by the way, the song's timing is really fast.
Mhm.
It's the hardest dance. It looks horrific when you do it wrong. It's really hard to do it right. We do a little bit of samba. We've taken a lot of lessons on samba. We've done a lot of it over the years. But like when we get out there and social dance it, I stick to like 3 or 4 core steps. We do
Mhm.
one song and we get off the floor because it's
Right.
actually grueling on the body. It's
Right. I
physically
mean, yeah,
grueling.
add to all those things that you're talking about, then remembering steps and patterns. Like it's your brain is really trying to juggle a lot. And so like Joey and Jenna taking on a samba is like really impressive. I mean, it tells me
Aggressive.
a
Yeah.
lot about Joey, like that
Yeah.
he doesn't back down from a challenge. And I think he really wanted this too. This is like a next level
Oh yeah.
uh, dance.
And the other thing about samba is and when it comes to kind of the Latin rhythm dances, a lot of them are rather stationary. They all
Mhm.
can move around the floor, but they tend to be a little bit more stationary as opposed to the smooth dances where you're
Right.
really navigating the floor. Samba is um the single rhythm or Latin dance that actually is really moving around the floor. Like
Right.
you move
Many
around the
of the Latin
floor
dances are what's referred to as slot dances, where you're essentially like staying in a
tight,
slot.
contained. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, in a like you're moving essentially in a row back and forth.
yeah.
You're not taking up that much room. And think about it, like in for those dances, like they're for like nightclubs for small spaces, and so you're really staying really close in one spot. To take up the floor is just not possible. But yeah, samba is like just an expansive dance in so many ways. So
Hmm.
it's so much to navigate mentally and physically.
Yep. Hmm. Um, So in terms of the performance, uh, excellent. I mean, did he get enough Cuban motion? No. Did his pelvic tilt exist? Not really. But steps were clean and crisp. He was on timing. I think for 1 week to prepare, I think he looked way better than I've ever looked. I mean, we've done a few random routines of this over the years. He looked better than any time I've ever danced samba. So I handicapping it for the fact that it's 1 week of prep. This was an A performance. I mean, this
Yeah.
I would have been fine if he had gotten tens across the board on this. This was a one. Also, just the choreography. Choreography was awesome. Well, I mean,
Amazing. I mean,
yeah,
amazing. Jenna is incredible. Like that move where she's crawling backwards and like moving her.
mhm.
I was just like, you are just epic, like
She
beautiful. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
of these 3 pros, there's no question in my mind that she is the most creative with
Mhm.
respect to choreography, right?
Mhm.
I think Whitney is just the all-around better dancer and perhaps the better strategist, but
Well, who knows
Jenna
if
is
we'd see better, more creative choreography if she had a stronger partner, you know?
that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, I think Jenna is that's her name, right? Jenna.
Mhm.
She's really next level with the choreography. And Joey can hang. And given the difficulty technically of this dance and the preparation time, I thought it was entertaining dance. It was
Mhm.
fun,
Mhm.
and the execution was as good as you could expect an amateur dancer to get after a week of practice. So
Mhm.
really can't
Um,
say anything
y-
better.
yeah, I thought the performance from both of them was great. Like, really got into character. Joey does have a lot of musicality, which I think is
Hmm.
cool to see. Again, something I wasn't really expecting from him. And when
Hmm.
I think about the biggest concern about him being the Bachelor was that like he was kind of like a wet paper bag. Like we didn't really get to see a lot of
Hmm.
personality. Like he just continues to surprise me in the best way possible. Like I was not expecting this from him at all. So I thought that was great. Yeah, choreography was great. He did a great job. I agree that I was like looking to see a little bit more of the motion that I would expect from Samba, but like considering he's never done this before is great. As far as scores, he got 2 8s and a 9.
That
They
seems
did.
low.
I know, I agree, and I think that was the commentary too.
And
Like they should
Danny
have.
got 9s.
That's it. That's
Bullshit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Terrible judgment.
the feedback was to work on his bounce, as we had said. One judge said that his steps were occasionally too long, and that he can focus on his arm movements for more smooth fluidity. So that was like the main feedback. So his feedback is just more technical than everybody else's. Where
Mhm.
I don't think they're judging him at a higher level, which I don't
Yeah.
think is necessarily fair.
Yeah, but we see this all the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we'd go and do group classes all the time, and the instructor would come around and they're like, "Oh, hey, you over here, just get that arm up a little bit." And then they come
Yeah.
over to us and they're like, "No, you must do all of these things," and yanking on us and pulling and twisting. And it's like, so I do think it's important. I like they shouldn't be a race to the bottom, right? If somebody is clearly better than somebody else, and you can give critical feedback to them that they're willing to take and accept, and they can improve, then you should give it, right? And if somebody
Yeah.
is not capable or not at the level where they can execute on more technical stuff, then you should, give feedback that is actionable. Like feedback in any situation, feedback should be actionable. If your feedback is not actionable or attainable by the person, then it's no longer feedback. Now it's just criticism, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. True.
that's I think the big, when people say like, "Oh, I was just being honest about somebody's deficiencies or how somebody sucks," it's like, no. Like the defining difference here is if what you said can be true and can be harsh, but if it's outside the scope of the capability of somebody to take that information and improve upon themselves using that information, then then at that point you're just a jerk, and you're just being critical, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's like the difference. If the judges were to give that level of technicality to Danny, there's
Yeah.
nothing
It's
Danny can
not
do. Danny's
fair.
not at
Yeah.
that level, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they dumb down the criticisms that Joey's getting to what they would give to Danny, like that's not doing Joey any good
Yeah.
either,
Yeah.
right?
Joey wants
We're
to
not
get better.
all,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not all equal
Yeah.
in
I
all
think I guess
things.
I'm more sensitive to it because, there are eliminations. Like there is, I don't know how much America is influenced by the judging when they're casting their own votes, but maybe the America thing is more of a popularity contest. I'm not sure. I truly don't like
Well, in
understand.
the few seasons that we watched of American Idol, it seems to me that America does not care what the judges think.
That may be true.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, that's all I got.
Yeah, let's get out of here. We've got Fantasy Suites with Joe next week. We've got our 3 Dancing with the stars still in competition for next week. So more to come there. And if you want to check in with us between now and next week, you can give us a follow on Instagram at Reactivity TV. You can follow me at Amy Albero LCSW. Also, feel free to send us an email with any comments, questions, suggestions to reactivitytv@revivecfw.com. But if not, we love seeing you in our comments. Light up that comment section. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. We will see you next week with more. Bye.
See ya.